Hey everybody, Heather here from Heather's Hobby Haven, and today we're going to be watercoloring our Ebony image from our October watercoloring card kit. She's from the Emerald Faerie Gardens Collection, so we're going to be coloring her. And to color my images, I use a Zig water brush. I like the detail tip. I also like the medium one, and these are both on the site. I also have a little paper towel that I'm going to use to dab off my ink. And I also have a color chart that I use, and the link to get a little sheet like this is on the side of the Heather's Hobby Haven's blog. I colored each of the little butterflies on watercolor paper, and then I punched them out and stuck them to the little chart, and then took it over and had it laminated. And then I just take the re-inkers and put a little drop on each color, and I use it all the time. I never wipe it off. I just go and get it every time I need some. So this is what I use to do my coloring. And so let's get started. So to start, I'm going to shadow my image with some weathered wood to give it a little bit of a background. And so I've got my little weathered wood here, and usually what I do is I'll put my brush into it and I'll kind of wipe it out here a little bit and then kind of dab it off so that it kind of waters it down in there a little bit. And then I'll use that, what I've got on my brush, to color my image. So I'll start like right under here where I want it to be the darkest. And I'll lay down a little bit of color, and then I'll dab off that extra ink I have on there, and I'll just use the water on my brush to feather it out, and so there's not a line there anymore. And then I'll grab me a little bit more ink and I'll go do the other side. And again, I dab off my brush and then feather out this little line here at the bottom so I don't have a little shadow line. It just kind of makes it work right out into the rest of the background. And then I'll just continue all the way around and do the whole thing. So I'd go up here and I'd do up here on top. And I may come back later and darken this up, but I'm going to leave it like that for right now to let it dry. And then I'm going to continue the rest of the way around. Let's zoom in a little bit. For her face, I'm going to use Tattered Rose. So I'll grab a little bit of my Tattered Rose off my sheet. And I'm going to start where I want it to be the darkest. And so I'm going to start up here underneath of her hairline. Get her arm too. Okay, and while that is drying, I try to let it dry in between layers. So while that's drying, I'm going to go and I'm going to work on the bottom of the mushroom down here. So for that, I'm going to use pumice stone. So I'll grab me a little bit of pumice stone. And I want it to be darkest over here where she's sitting. So I'm going to run my brush down the side. And then by now it's pretty much off of my brush, so I'm just going to use the little bit that's here to spread it out to the other side of the mushroom stem. So it's darker over on this side, but it's pretty light over here, but we'll come back later and add more color. I'm also going to get the top of the mushroom stem, so I'm going to go up here. And again, I'm going to do this side over here, and I'm going to make this side lighter. So I'll lay down my color over here and then use what's left to spread it over to this side. And I'm also going to do the underside of the mushroom. So I'm going to brush my color along the bottom here. And it's pretty light right there, but I'm going to let it dry and then I'll add another color. So now that my shadowing has dried around the outside of the mushroom, so I'm going to go back and add a little bit more darken up my shadow with my weathered wood. So I want it to be a little bit darker right here underneath of my mushroom. I'll lay down a little color right there. And come back with just my wet brush and spread it out. And same for this side. I'm going to give a little shadow too right here underneath of where she's sitting. Okay, and then I'm going to go add another layer up here to her face. So again, I'm going to use some Tattered Rose. I'm going to add it where I want my darkest to start, so I'm going to go up here and lay it down underneath of her hairline, inside of her ear. And then I still got quite a bit on my brush, so I'm going to wipe that off. And then I'm just going to use what I put on to wipe down and color a little bit more on the bottom side of her face. And we'll add a little bit more to her hand and her arm. Okay, and then we're going to let that dry. So while that's drying, I'm going to go and add a little bit more color to my mushroom stem. So I'm going to grab me a little bit of my pumice stone. And again, I'm going to start over here on this side. Let's darken up the underside of our mushroom. Okay, now I'm going to go down here and I'm going to add a little bit of more color to her face, but I want to darken it up a little bit. So I'm going to take my tattered rose that I have here, and I'm just going to take a little bit on my brush and I'm going to stick it right here. And then I'm going to get just a little bitty bit on the end of tea dye on the end of my brush, and I'm going to add it to that and kind of mix it together. And then I'm going to use that for my shadow on her face. And I always wipe my brush off after I've mixed it because I've got quite a bit on there. So I'm going to grab a little bit of my mixed colors, and I want it to be shadowed with that right up here underneath of her hair and down this side of her face. The bottom of her arm right here. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of color to her cheeks, so I'm going to get me just a little bit of tattered rose on my brush, and I'm going to put it right here where her cheeks are. And then I'm going to grab just a little bitty bit of more lipstick and dab that on there. I'll wipe my brush off because I got quite a bit, and then just kind of soften the edges with just water on my brush. And I may come back here in just a bit after this is dried and put a little bit more on. Okay, so while that's drying, it looks like I missed a part of the mushroom right here, so I'm going to get that. Right here under her chin.